In 1964, child genius Frank travels to the New York World's Fair to enter the inventors competition. Judge Nix is impressed by Frank's jetpack at first, but that changes when Frank admits it doesn't work very well. Nix immediately tells him to come back when it actually works. As Frank leaves, a girl named Athena approaches him. She secretly hands him a lapel pin and tells him to follow her and Nix without being seen. Frank sneaks after them and jumps into an empty boat. During the ride, a laser scans the lapel pin and unlocks a hidden trap door. The boat carries Frank through a dark passage before stopping at a futuristic elevator. A female AI voice welcomes Frank and opens the door for him. The moment he steps in, metal shutters seal the windows, and he's suddenly teleported to a strange place covered in thick fog. Moments later, a flying car speeds overhead. Frank spots Athena and Nix inside and chases after them, but giant robots suddenly appear and shove him off the platform. Luckily, he lands safely on another platform with his jetpack. A friendly robot picks up the broken jetpack, repairs it in seconds, and hands it back to him. Before Frank can test it, security guards rush in to arrest him. While trying to escape, he slips and falls off the platform again. This time he quickly straps on the jetpack and activates it just before hitting the ground. Frank flies through the futuristic city and makes a rough landing in front of Nix and Athena. Nix ignores him, but Athena happily takes Frank's hand and reveals Tomorrowland, a breathtaking futuristic city where only the most brilliant people are invited. Years later, teenage girl Casey sneaks into a NASA launch site to sabotage the demolition equipment. Since the launch site is being torn down, she hopes to stop the demolition and save her father Eddie's job as a NASA engineer. Unbeknownst to Casey, Athena watches everything. After Casey returns home, Athena secretly takes a strand of Casey's hair from her bike helmet and programs it into her last Tomorrowland lapel pin. The next morning, Eddie gets a call from work about the sabotaged demolition equipment. He tells Casey she has to stop doing this, but Casey insists that keeping hope alive is more important. That evening, Casey sneaks back to the launch site to sabotage the demolition again. This time, the police are already waiting for her, and she's arrested. Hours later, Eddie pays her bail. As Casey collects her belongings, she notices a strange lapel pin. The moment she touches it, she's suddenly transported to another world. Startled, Casey drops the pin and instantly finds herself back in jail. She picks it up again and the same thing happens. This time, she holds on to it and sees a futuristic city in the distance. Excited, Casey starts walking toward the city, but she suddenly crashes into a wall. The pin slips from her hand and she's instantly back in jail. Not wanting to trigger it again, Casey carefully picks up the pin with a gum wrapper. Just then, Eddie arrives and scolds Casey for getting herself arrested. Casey asks him to touch the pin, convinced it will explain everything. But when Eddie does, nothing happens. Confused, Casey touches the pin herself and is transported back to the mysterious world. She realizes the pin only works for her. Frustrated by all the talk about the pin, Eddie takes it away. When they get home, Casey waits for Eddie to fall asleep and steals the lapel pin from his nightstand. The moment she touches it, the futuristic city appears again. This time, Casey carefully avoids bumping into walls, but she gets distracted and accidentally falls down a flight of stairs. To avoid running into obstacles in the real world, Casey walks into the middle of an open field before touching the pin again. She boards a futuristic train and soon realizes nobody can see or hear her. While exploring the city, she notices a female astronaut saying goodbye to her family before leaving on a mission 20 light-years away from Earth. Curious, Casey follows her. Suddenly, water begins rushing in around Casey. At the same time, the pin runs out of power and she's instantly transported back to the real world right into the middle of a lake. When she gets home, Casey wakes up her younger brother Nate and asks for the password to their father's computer. Together, they search online for information about the lapel pin. They eventually find a shop that buys these pins. Casey writes down the address and asks Nate to tell their dad she's gone camping with friends. The next morning, Athena arrives at the house looking for Casey. Nate claims she's camping, but Athena sees through the lie and pressures him into revealing where Casey went. Meanwhile, Casey arrives at the shop and shows the owners her lapel pin. They confirm that everything she saw was real, and it's a place where the world's brightest minds gathered to invent freely without government control or corporate greed. But instead of answering more questions, they demand to know where Casey got the pin and ask about a little girl. Casey has no idea what they're talking about. The owners suddenly lock the doors and attack Casey with futuristic weapons. Suddenly, a grenade crashes through the window. It explodes and traps both shop owners inside a glowing force field. Athena storms inside, fully armed. She tells Casey the force field is temporary, so they need to leave immediately. Unfortunately, Casey's hand gets stuck inside the force field. When she finally pulls it free, the force field instantly collapses, releasing the shop owners. Athena is forced to fight both of them at once. During the battle, the female female owner lunges at Athena with a spear. Athena dodges at the last second, causing the spear to impale the male owner instead. Athena then rips off the female owner's head. Casey is stunned to discover the shop owners are actually humanoid robots. Athena warns that the robots are about to self-destruct and drags Casey out of the shop just before it explodes. Outside, Athena smashes the window of a parked car and pushes Casey inside. Using a high-tech handheld device, she starts the car and speeds away. As they drive, Athena reveals she was the one who gave Casey the lapel pin. Before she can explain further, she suddenly starts glitching and uses the same device to repair herself. Casey watches in horror and realizes Athena is a robot too. Terrified, Casey jumps out of the car. Athena gets out to chase her but is suddenly struck by a passing truck. The driver rushes over to check on Athena, giving Casey the chance to steal his truck and escape. But Athena is completely unharmed. She sprints after Casey at incredible speed and catches up within seconds. She then jumps onto the vehicle, steals the keys, and locks the doors. Casey panics and won't stop screaming. To calm her down, Athena reveals the place is called Tomorrowland, but someone built something they never should have, and if they don't get there soon, Tomorrowland will disappear. Meanwhile, police arrive at the destroyed shop to investigate the explosion. A man named Dave soon arrives and identifies himself as a Secret Service agent. When an officer brings the burned robot head, Dave suddenly pulls out a futuristic weapon and kills every police officer at the scene. He then orders his team to contact Governor Nix and report that they've found the girl. Meanwhile, Athena and Casey continue their journey to look for the only person who can get them into Tomorrowland. Athena warns she'll shut down if Casey keeps asking questions, but Casey doesn't listen, and Athena shuts down. Later, Casey stops at a payphone and leaves her father a voicemail, telling him not to worry about her. The next morning, Athena tells Casey they're going to meet a man named Frank and takes over the driving so Casey can get some sleep. Hours later, Athena shoves Casey out of the truck in front of an isolated house and drives away. With no other choice, Casey approaches the house. A fierce guard dog suddenly charges at her, causing her to trip and fall. But then she notices the dog isn't leaving any paw prints. She realizes it's only a hologram. Casey ignores the fake dog and knocks on the door. The moment Casey shows her lapel pin to a security camera, an invisible force field blasts her backward. An older Frank steps outside and tells Casey what she saw was just a commercial video from decades ago to lure in people like her. Frank then goes back inside and locks the door. Casey refuses to give up and waits outside for hours, even as heavy rain pours down. Eventually, she comes up with a plan. Casey sets a plow truck on fire and drives it straight toward the house. Frank rushes outside with one of his inventions to put out the flames. While he's distracted, Casey slips into the house and locks the door behind her. When Frank tries to get back inside, Casey activates the same invisible force field and sends him flying. As she explores the house, Casey discovers it's filled with bizarre inventions. One device plays an old recording of a young Frank and Athena together. In another room, she finds dozens of monitors displaying a mysterious countdown. Just then, a hidden door beneath the staircase opens and Frank gets back into the house. Frank reveals that he was kicked out of Tomorrowland. Casey then asks what the countdown timer is for. Instead of answering, Frank asks her a question. If he could tell her the exact date and time of her death, would she want to know? Casey says she wouldn't believe him because people should be able to choose their own destiny. The moment she says that, the percentage displayed on the screens suddenly drops. Frank is shocked by what he's seeing. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted when Dave and robot agents arrive. Frank immediately seals the house by activating metal blinds over every window, but it's already too late. One robot is trying to break in, so Frank electrocutes her with a special tool. Another robot is destroyed by an electrical trap, while two more fall through a hidden trapdoor. Frank activates a laser mesh that slices another robot apart. He then switches on an electromagnetic force field hidden inside the wall and traps another robot. Just then, another robot overpowers Frank. Thinking quickly, Casey grabs a portal machine and traps the robot inside. Eventually, Dave catches up to them and holds Frank at gunpoint. Casey grabs a baseball bat and beats Dave until he's no longer a threat. Frank then drags Casey into the bathroom. They jump into the bathtub, and Frank activates it, transforming it into a sealed metal capsule. Dave refuses to give up and tries to force the capsule open. At that moment, the capsule blasts out of the house. The capsule safely crashes into a nearby lake. Frank and Casey swim ashore and head into the woods, where Frank has hidden a motorcycle that refuses to start. The duo is suddenly startled by headlights approaching them, but it's just Athena. Frank is not very pleased to see Athena, but the trio hits the road and eventually arrives at one of Frank's secret storage unit. Inside, Frank opens a hidden trapdoor and reveals a teleportation capsule. Once they're all inside, the capsule begins shaking violently before teleporting them to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Casey then uses one of Frank's gadgets to knock out a security guard. The trio enters a hidden room where Frank explains that Eiffel, Verne, Tesla, and Edison founded Tomorrowland. They use the Eiffel Tower as a giant antenna to travel to another dimension. Frank takes out a vinyl record and places it on an old record player. As the music begins to play, the Eiffel Tower splits apart, revealing a massive hidden rocket. The trio rushes aboard just as robot agents arrive to capture them. The rocket blasts off, knocking the robots away one by one. It flies flies into outer space before turning back toward Earth at incredible speed and passes through a portal into Tomorrowland. After a rough crash landing, the trio steps outside and discovers that Tomorrowland is now deserted and eerily empty. Frank quietly tells Athena to hide a special bomb inside her body as a backup plan, before several flying police cars surround them. Governor Nix steps out and greets them, saying they're about to be deported once again. Frank convinces Nix that Casey is the only person who can fix everything. Nix is skeptical, but takes the trio to a machine called the Monitor. They steps onto the floating elevator, and on the way, Casey notices strange shadow-like images of themselves. Nix explains that these are glimpses of the future. The Monitor works by harnessing the tachyon particles, which can travel faster than light. Tomorrowland discovered these particles 40 years ago, while scientists on Earth are still debating whether they even exist. They soon arrive inside the Monitor, where Nix reveals that Frank invented the machine to keep an eye on Earth. Casey is shocked when the Monitor shows her family at their house just 3 days earlier. Frank adds that the Monitor can also see into the future. Then Casey witnesses something even more terrifying. The Earth will be destroyed in just 58 days. She demands to know why Nix hasn't warned the people of Earth and why Tomorrowland no longer invites Earth's brightest minds. Nix believes that if more people from Earth are allowed into Tomorrowland, this place will eventually become just as ruined like Earth. Furious, Casey argues that Nix is blindly trusting a prophecy made by a machine. She refuses to believe that Earth's destruction is inevitable. The moment she says that, the image on the Monitor flickers. For a brief second, it shows Earth thriving instead of dying. Frank is amazed by what he sees, but before he can react, Nix knocks him unconscious with a gadget. Later, Frank wakes up beside Athena. She tells him they're about to be deported again. Casey is devastated. She believes their entire journey has been pointless. When Frank tries to comfort her, she lashes out, accusing both of them of lying to her. As she continues venting, Casey suddenly realizes something. Frank has been intercepting the Monitor's signal all the way from Earth. That shouldn't even be possible because Tomorrowland exists in another dimension. Then it finally clicks. The Monitor isn't just predicting Earth's destruction, it's broadcasting those doomsday visions to Earth, convincing people the end is inevitable and turning the prophecy into a self-fulfilling one. Realizing the truth, the trio decides to shut down the Monitor. Before they can make a move, guards arrive to escort them to the portal. Casey and Frank beg Nix to shut down the Monitor. Nix refuses, saying the machine can't simply be turned off. That's when Frank realizes Nix has been using the Monitor to broadcast the doomsday signal to Earth. Nix argues that they've already tried warning humanity. They even warned people about the Titanic, but no one listened. While bees disappear and glaciers melt, humanity keeps destroying its own world despite knowing exactly what's happening. During the handshake, Frank secretly touches Nix's bracelet and summons the floating elevator leading to the Monitor. A fight immediately breaks out. Athena and Casey quickly take down the guards while Frank battles Nix. Nix then activates 2 robots and sends them after the girls. Frank tells Athena to use the special bomb he gave her, but as she tries to reach the floating elevator, one of the robots grabs her. Athena tosses the bomb to Casey and stays behind to fight the robots, giving Casey enough time to ride the elevator toward the Monitor. Meanwhile, Frank shoves Nix through the portal, and the two continue fighting over control of the bracelet. Athena manages to take control of one of the robots and uses it to punch the other robot through the portal, leaving it stranded in the sand on the other side. At the same time, Casey watches her future self and uses the vision to activate the bomb. Just as she's about to throw it, Nix regains control of the bracelet and pulls the floating elevator back down. Athena rushes in with the robot and catches the falling elevator, but it's destroyed in the collision, causing Casey to lose the bomb. Athena then runs to the control panel and closes the portal to destroy the second robot. But in the process, Frank and Nix are trapped outside. At that moment, Casey spots the bomb, but it's only seconds away from exploding. Athena reopens the portal, and Casey throws the bomb through to the other side. Once Frank and Nix make it back, Athena closes the portal, leaving the bomb to explode safely away from them. The explosion tears part of the portal apart, and the wreckage crashes down onto Nix. Athena sees the future shadow where Nix manages to grab a nearby gun to shoot Frank. Without hesitation, she rushes in front of Frank and takes the shot herself. Casey quickly disarms Nix while Frank carries badly damaged Athena toward a repair station. Athena tells him to stop and plays a series of voice diaries for Frank. Turns out, young Frank had a crush on Athena, but he was hurt when he realized she was a robot. Athena finally admits Frank made her feel emotions she was never designed to have. Frank is deeply moved. He's relieved to learn Athena truly cared about him and never stopped believing in him. But Athena is about to self-destruct. Her final wish is for Frank to use the explosion to destroy the Monitor. Frank straps on a jetpack and carries Athena high above the city. After sharing one last goodbye, he gently releases her into the heart of the Monitor. Moments later, a massive explosion destroys the Monitor and the collapsing structure comes crashing down onto Nix. With the Monitor gone, Tomorrowland loses power. Frank barely manages to crash land safely in the water. Casey rushes over to make sure he's okay. Together, they begin discussing how to rebuild Tomorrowland. They restore power to the city and reopen the portal, allowing Casey to reunite with her family. Finally, they restart the machine that creates Tomorrowland pins. After that, they send out a new generation generation of robots like Athena across Earth to find the world's brightest minds and give them the chance to build a better future for both Earth and Tomorrowland.